I don't know since when I noticed that Qin Wei, my deskmate, looked at me in a rather strange way. At first, he casually moved the desk a bit farther away from me. Later, he simply moved his chair to the window side. I patted him on the shoulder, intending to remind him to focus on the class. Unexpectedly, he was so startled that he fell off his chair directly. He scrambled up from the ground with hands and feet in a panic, then turned around and fled the classroom in a hurry without looking back. I was extremely puzzled and wondered if I had offended him. I planned to ask Qin Wei the next day to clear up the misunderstanding. To my surprise, when I came to school the next day, the seat beside me was already empty. The English teacher told me hesitantly that Qin Wei had applied on her own to be transferred to an ordinary class. Our class was the top key class in Ingzhong with excellent teaching resources. Qin Wei had told me no less than 10 times how hard she had worked to get into this class. That she actually volunteered to be transferred to an ordinary class was really strange. I still couldn't hold back and inquired about her new class as soon as the class was over. I directly bought expensive gifts and went there. Even though I didn't know the reason, my attitude of making amends was extremely sincere. Qin Wei was still sitting by the window, chatting and laughing with her new classmates beside her. While I was hesitating by the window, her friend beside her had already seen me. He pushed her shoulder and said, "Wei Wei, someone is looking for you." The broad smile on Qin Wei's face froze instantly when she turned around. As her smile faded, it turned into a look of horror that was uglier than crying. She trembled violently all over and said, "Auntie, it really has nothing to do with you. Please don't come to me. Please, I beg you." The people in the classroom, seeing her in such a frenzied state, quickly drove me away. I had to carry my things and return to my classroom. Lin Ran saw that I was listless and had already guessed the result of my attempt to make peace. He came over and patted me. "Forget it. There's no need to force things with someone who's not suitable. Your seat is quite in the front. The teacher will surely assign you a new deskmate from the back." "Maybe the new deskmate will be even better," I sighed. "I hope so. Can the new deskmate really get along well with me?" The new deskmate was called Chun Yujing. He had a very cheerful personality. It took only 2 classes for us to go from being strangers to getting to know each other. Soon we became the kind of relationship where we would pass notes and chat, and we got along swimmingly. However, after lunch he suddenly became silent. When the teacher called on him to answer a question in class, he, who was always active, actually froze for 2 seconds before standing up. He told the teacher that he had been distracted just now and didn't know. The English teacher was very dissatisfied. "First Qin Wei and now you. You all have your minds off your studies." As for the reason, Chun Yujing's eyes seemed to glance at me casually. Although it was fleeting, I, who had been extremely sensitive recently, caught it. I suddenly realized that Chun Yujing had also become strange. He started to avoid me intentionally or unintentionally. Even during the afternoon nap, when I opened my eyes in a half-asleep state, I unexpectedly found him staring at me intently. His distorted mouth had his fingers in it, and he was gnawing on them uneasily. His originally intact nails were bitten to be, with a white edge giving off powder. Seeing that I had accidentally discovered him, he seemed very uneasy. His 2 bright big eyes were bloodshot, and he quickly backed away, until he, together with his pink top, almost blended in with the cherry blossoms outside the window. He managed to calm his breathing with difficulty and turned his head away, no longer looking at me. I was tormented by the huge contrast. I rushed forward and grabbed his hand. "What on earth is the reason? Is there something about me that makes you uncomfortable?" "No, it's not your problem." Chun Yujing, who was usually bold, actually let out a sharp scream and forcefully shook off my hand as if I were some untouchable monster. I turned my head with tears in my eyes. "Why on earth? Clearly I haven't done anything. I've been nice to them too. But first Qin Wei and then Chun Yujing both treated me like this." I took out a mirror and looked at myself from left to right, but I really couldn't see anything wrong. Although I'm not extremely good looking, I'm not so repulsive that I would make people feel disgusted, right? Tears welled up in my eyes. Seeing this, Chun Yujing seemed a bit guilty and wanted to comfort me. Suddenly, he jumped up in horror and frantically touched his back. He shouted nervously, sorry, and then turned around as if he were about to jump out of the window. I quickly, along with other classmates who had woken up, pulled him back. After that, worried about his mental state, I no longer pestered him as I did with Qin Wei. I just quietly observed him, fearing that he would do something stupid. Unexpectedly, one day during PE class, I found that Chun Yujing was missing. Worried, I looked for him everywhere, but finally found him in the classroom. He was sitting in my seat, rummaging through my desk with a frenzied expression. I widened my eyes. "Chun Yujing, what are you doing?" He seemed not to hear me. Finally, after rummaging and finding a piece of paper, he let out a sudden scream and looked up at me. When I came over, the pupils in his eyes were quivering violently. Before the PE class ended, he rushed into the classroom and went to the office to tell the teacher that he wanted to change his seat. The teacher was rather helpless. "That seat is quite good. It's at the very front of the classroom. Now you want to move to the middle. No, I don't want the front or the back. Please, teacher. As Chun Yujing spoke, he nervously glanced out of the window. Just then he saw me standing at the door and immediately burst into tears. Teacher, please, please. But the teacher was already impatient. I also have to consider the feelings of other classmates. You have so many requests. I can't meet them all. Chun Yujing was struck as if by lightning. His legs went weak and he knelt on the ground looking eager to escape. But when he saw me standing at the door, he didn't dare to come out. I let out a heavy sigh and turned back to the classroom. The seat beside me remained empty. Chun Yujing didn't come back. The next day, the teacher announced that he was taking a leave of absence from school. Classmate Chun Yujing said he's not feeling well and needs to take a leave for a while, the teacher said, knocking on the blackboard. Although we're only in grade 11 now, we still need to focus on our studies. Environmental factors are not important. If the mind is at peace, everything will be calm. Even so, I couldn't help but wonder about the reason. As soon as the class was over, I turned to find my best friend, Lin Ran, and the two of us went to the corridor to chat. I clenched my fists. I must find out the reason. Otherwise, I'll keep thinking about this. Lin Ran propped up her face in distress. I don't know. But if you want to investigate, I'll accompany you. Lin Ran was the first to think of the piece of paper that Chun Yujing secretly went back to the classroom to rummage for in my desk during PE class. There must be a reason for what he did. Yes, but I can't figure it out at all. I showed Lin Ran the piece of paper helplessly. It was just an ordinary medical examination form, showing that everything was normal. I racked my brains but couldn't understand why Chun Yujing had rummaged through my medical examination form. Lin Ran's frustration was evident on her face. Could he be afraid that you have an infectious disease and will infect him? I looked at myself. I don't have any skin diseases and I look healthy. How could I be sick? Duh, of course I know you're not sick. She rolled her eyes. This is really strange. I suddenly remembered that a few days ago, I had asked the monitor if there was anything strange about me. He looked at me suspiciously and said I was normal. So at least in the monitor's eyes, I wasn't strange. Maybe I could ask him for help in this matter. Thinking of this, I turned to look for the monitor, but unexpectedly, the monitor came to talk to me at the same time. Who you? The incidents with your two deskmates recently, they haven't affected you, have they? I was still a bit depressed about the empty seat. They treated me like I had the plague. The monitor comforted me. It's not your problem. The teachers even said maybe there's something wrong with the feng shui of that seat. That the cherry blossom fragrance is too strong and makes people lose their wits. I knew he was joking to cheer me up. It's okay. I know this matter is probably related to me. You don't need to persuade me. The monitor asked. Do you still remember when their attitude suddenly changed? I thought carefully. Qinwei became strange when the cherry blossoms bloomed. That is, a few days after the start of this semester. And Chun Yujing changed from being enthusiastic and active to being cold and scared in just one lunchtime. The monitor grasped the key point. When the cherry blossoms bloomed, did you do anything? I thought for a while. I went to the school's small forest to see the cherry blossoms with him and Lin Ran. Does that count? The small forest? The school doesn't allow us to go there, does it? What did you go there for? A look of blame flashed across the monitor's face. Moments later, he suddenly became extremely terrified. After giving me a strange look, his legs started to tremble, and he actually ran straight back to the classroom. Lin Ran twitched the corner of her mouth. The school doesn't allow us to go there because there are a lot of insects, right? How could a big guy be so scared? But I was angry. So it was all because of the small forest. How about we go and have a look after school? Lin Ran spread her hands. Up to you. After having lunch and coming back, there was still no one else in the classroom. I stood at the door and saw the monitor sitting in my seat, frantically rummaging through something. His eyes were bloodshot, and beads of sweat were rolling down his forehead. Finally, he took out a piece of paper. The moment he saw it, he was struck as if by lightning. Then he looked up and saw me standing at the door. Immediately, his legs went weak, and he let out a terrified scream. I was startled by him. What are you screaming for? The teacher asked me to come and ask you about getting me a new deskmate. You go and ask the teacher yourself. I don't know. Seeing him like this, I was really afraid that if I walked in further, I would scare him unconscious. So I had to turn and go to the teacher's office. I found the head teacher. Teacher, I really don't know the reason. She comforted me. It has nothing to do with you. High school students are under a lot of pressure, and it's normal. Although she said so, her words still implied that I should think about how I got along with my classmates and be more accommodating. I felt extremely aggrieved. How about this, teacher? Anyway, no one wants to be my deskmate. Lin Ran is my best friend. Why don't you move her next to me? At least Lin Ran won't dislike me. The head teacher's hand, which was typing on the keyboard, suddenly froze. Then she stopped, looking puzzled, and turned her head to look at me. Lin Ran? Who is Lin Ran? Is there such a person in our class? I was stunned. I looked up in near disbelief. Teacher, are you joking? Lin Ran is the one sitting by the window in the last row, the one with very good Chinese grades. The head teacher froze in place. Finally, she actually reached out and touched my forehead. You don't have a fever either. There has never been anyone sitting by the window in the last row. Have you forgotten? I was dumbfounded. Looking at the head teacher's serious and solemn expression, I also realized that she didn't seem to be joking. I turned and rushed into the classroom. Before, I only knew that Lin Ran and I were the best of friends, and I often went to the last row to find him as soon as the class was over. But when I really stood in that position and looked into the desk, I found that there wasn't even a single book in it. The empty desk meant that no one had ever sat there. but I still couldn't believe it. I just felt a chill down my spine. Could I really have dissociative identity disorder? I seemed to finally understand why my medical examination report was kept away and repeatedly checked by my classmates, because they all thought I was schizophrenic. But what was even more suffocating was that the medical examination report was all normal. That is to say, the results of my brainwave showed that there was no mental problem with me. I couldn't explain this supernatural and Linyi phenomenon. I rushed to the podium to check the class student number list. Only then did I find that class 3 grade 11, which I originally thought had 44 people, actually had only 43 people. But this couldn't explain. If Lin Ran really didn't exist and was just an imagined fantasy, then why was the other portion of food that I took out always eaten up completely? I suddenly remembered that in my impression, Lin Ran always had very good grades. So I ran to the school honor roll. But I was shocked to find that the big headshot that originally belonged to Lin Ran had grown mold after being soaked by rain and was blurred. Lin Ran really didn't exist. I started to be afraid. If no one else could see Lin Ran and he wasn't really non-existent, then what had I been getting along with all this time? I returned to the classroom in a daze, not daring to look at the back row, afraid of meeting Lin Ran's eyes. But when I daydreamed through a whole day of classes and then looked back, I found that Lin Ran was gone. Since I went to the teacher's office, he hadn't appeared for a whole day. All the things we had shared together before were like a dream, but I didn't expect that what happened next would be even more subversive to my cognition. After school, I still went to the canteen to buy a starch sausage to take home. Before leaving, the boss suddenly asked with a smile, "Girl, where's your friend? Why didn't she come with you today?" I was taken aback. What friend? That little girl. She's very gentle looking with long hair. Since the school's reform a year ago, girls in the school are not allowed to have hair longer than their ears. Only Lin Ran in the whole class has hair that reaches her shoulders. I've always been very envious. Many details were pieced together at this moment. I looked at the boss in even more disbelief. "You can see her?" The boss frowned. "What silly thing are you saying? I'm old, but I'm not blind." I realized I was being rude and quickly apologized. Then I went home in a daze. When I opened the door, I immediately saw the paper crane on the table. I can't fold paper cranes. Only Lin Ran can. He cheerfully folded a lot for me and said they were a symbol of luck. I walked up and opened the paper crane with mixed feelings. Only then did I find a sentence written inside. "Don't care about others' opinions anymore. You are you, the best you in my heart." I understood. He had never been fictional but had really existed. But why could only I and the canteen boss see him? I couldn't think of any common ground. The head teacher suspected that I had a psychological problem and asked the monitor to talk to me. Although he was reluctant, he still sat next to me reluctantly. Unexpectedly, I directly asked, "Lin Ran doesn't exist at all. So the reason you were suddenly so scared before wasn't because of the small forest but because I mentioned Lin Ran, right?" The monitor widened his eyes. It took him a long time to swallow his saliva. "Not entirely. Actually, I heard from Chin Wei that you would always call the air Lin Ran and then eat with a mass of air and go home together. But the most terrifying thing isn't that." The monitor looked around nervously, his body trembling slightly. He asked me cautiously, "Is Lin Ran here?" I shook my head. "He's been gone since yesterday. I still want to know the reason for his disappearance." Only then did the monitor heave a sigh of relief. "I originally thought there was something wrong with your mind. But that day when we were talking in the corridor and the sun shone over, I saw another shadow beside your shadow. Clearly, there was no one visible beside me, but there was an extra shadow out of thin air. The key is this shadow." The monitor bit his lip tightly at this point, closed his eyes and then summoned up the courage to say, "Its head and body were separated, and there were only a few threads connecting them." I also froze in place. He asked, "I can't imagine that if this is how he looks in your eyes, you can actually get along with such a terrifying person all the time." So he naturally thought I was terrifying too. No. I quickly denied it. In my eyes, he's normal. I told him the whole story in detail, even mentioning the canteen boss who could also see Lin Ran. Now it was the monitor's turn to be puzzled. If only you could see him, it could be Mencheng understood as an imagined character. But I can see his strange shadow, and the canteen boss can see him just like you. This is really strange. After a short silence, he suddenly jumped up. "Right, I haven't asked you before. Did you go to the small forest with Lin Ran and Chin Wei?" I nodded. "Is this related to the small forest?" "Of course. Do you know the double-slit interference experiment?" The monitor had the best physics grades in the whole school. He always liked to say that the end of physics is theology. I wasn't surprised that he could think of this. From a physics perspective, I think the scientific explanation is that there has been an intersection in time and space. You and the canteen boss can both see Lin Ran, who existed in a previous time and space, and he will also have a reflection in this time and space. But because of the uncertainty of particles, the shadow is more blurred and strange. Seeing my look of disbelief, the monitor said seriously, "I'm saying this because someone has really seen things from a previous time and space in the school." He pointed to the cherry blossom tree outside the window. These cherry trees, many of them were transplanted from the small forest, the place where things from the previous time-space were found. And the small forest is that. Realizing there was still time before class, the monitor began to tell the story in a soft voice. In the past, when the school's management wasn't as strict, there were often people from outside coming in. It was said that one year, a grandmother who collected bottles died in the small forest. She was scared to death because she saw a crazy woman who had killed people in the school before. When the security department went there at that time, they also saw those trees. Even though it was a cloudy day, there were several kinds of lights changing irregularly. The tree shadows were like ghosts. I interrupted him. This sounds too mysterious. I've also taken physics classes. Let's assume that the examples of crossing time-space really exist. Before opening the box, we never know whether the cat inside is alive or dead. But how did Lin Ran manage to become that Schrodinger's cat? The monitor's words were too absurd and profound, so I decided to ignore them. However, I didn't expect that I would dream of Lin Ran again that night. In the dream, the light in the sky was extremely dim. The setting sun was menacing, and when the scarlet dusk intertwined, I turned my head and saw the old-fashioned desks and chairs. I finally realized that I had returned to the past. According to the normal daily activities of students, it was just classes and breaks. Finally, the last PE class arrived. The setting sun in the sky had been torn apart like bloody scars. I stood on the playground playing games with my classmates in a hazy state of mind. Suddenly, a terrified scream erupted from the crowd. I heard my heart beating violently in my chest. I ran with the crowd, but when I reached the classroom door, I found that all the doors were closed. Behind me, that sticky feeling of being close to death slowly approached, so thick that it was suffocating. Suddenly, the scene changed. I saw Lin Ran standing at the end of the corridor smiling at me. As he smiled, his head slipped off his neck and actually fell directly from the railing. And in the darkness behind him, a face smiled. I finally woke up in a cold sweat. The feeling of escaping from death made me breathe heavily. In the following days, I had this dream every night, which made me even more haggard. Any calming medicine had no effect. I also realized that the matter didn't end with Lin Ran's disappearance. As the chosen one, if I didn't figure things out, the nightmare would always haunt me. After finding the monitor, he had a knowing look. You should have listened to me earlier. But from your dream, I think we should look into the past events. I was Kunal. If we ask the teachers, will they tell us? The monitor knocked on my head. Why ask the teachers? Isn't there a library in the school? The so-called library was actually the once-abandoned archives room, where a retired old teacher sat. His beard was as long as a whisk used by eunuchs in TV dramas. The monitor and I flipped through books for a long time, and found that there had been many strange phenomena in the school. Look at this. The monitor pointed to a record. This student was on duty to clean the gymnasium and left school very late. He accidentally saw the scene of female classmates skipping rope in the gymnasium many years ago. They were even using the oldest big red flower. I read many more records of strange events in the school, and found that there were indeed many unofficial histories of time-space intersections in this school. I sighed. But these are all rumors. There is no factual basis. The monitor frowned. You have already experienced such things. Don't you still believe in supernatural phenomena? I was silent. Suddenly, the monitor's phone rang. He looked down at it, and when he looked at me again, his expression became strange. I slightly frowned. What's wrong? He tried to organize his words carefully. After you told me before, I asked my friend to pay attention to the canteen boss. And then, he's dead. It was said that before he died, he saw his mother who used to manage the canteen. I didn't react in time. After a short moment of being dazed, I murmured, but he triggered the interlaced timespace because he was about to die and saw Lin Ran. Does this also mean? I trembled all over and heard my voice choking. I'm also going to die. My body seemed to become extremely heavy in an instant. I couldn't accept the fact that I was about to die. The monitor quickly reached out to support me. No way. Your physical examination report shows that you are so healthy. How could you die? I didn't know the reason either, but panic had swept over me. A hoarse voice sounded behind me. I turned around and saw the old teacher in the archives room looking at us with a complicated expression. You came to ask about Lin Ran, right? The monitor and I looked at each other and nodded together. The old teacher brewed a pot of tea. The time-space intersection in this school really exists, but the real reason is much more lychee and terrifying than you can imagine. Are you sure you want to hear it? The monitor and I started to inquire about the final whereabouts of the crazy woman in that incident many years ago. Finally, we learned that she had gone to a mental hospital. We finally summoned up the courage to go to the mental hospital to see her, but were told that the woman had received treatment for several years without any improvement. Moreover, she had also developed serious diseases, so she had been taken away by her family according to the procedure. The monitor and I looked at each other suddenly. I seemed to know why Lin Ran had appeared to remind us. After returning to school, we immediately found the old teacher, and told him that the crazy woman who had once killed countless students had been taken out of the mental hospital. Since she came to the school every day before, her home should not be far from the school. Would she think that she was sent to the mental hospital because of us and come to take revenge? The world of the mentally ill is always crazy. Their thinking is different from that of normal people. No one knows what they are thinking. After considering various factors reasonably, the old teacher said firmly, "This time I will remind repeatedly. I will never ignore it like before just because it was rejected once. We will not let the tragedy happen again." The monitor comforted me. "Now are you at ease? You won't die." I was breathing rapidly. "Maybe I will be the one who dies among all of us." He shook his head. "Don't think like that." But no matter how comforting the words were, they couldn't stop the truth from happening. I was still extremely anxious, fearing the coming of death. I didn't dare to tell my mother and could only cry alone under the covers. However, during this period my nightmare seemed to have lessened a lot, so much so that I thought nothing might happen next. But what should come will still come. One day, when the teachers went to a meeting collectively, the monitor and I, along with other classmates, were studying by ourselves in the classroom. Suddenly, there were exclamations one after another outside, and the commotion started. The crazy woman, holding a knife, actually rushed up the stairs directly, heading straight for Class 3, Grade 11, the classroom where Lin Ran had once been. The classmates quickly tried to block the door, but she didn't care about her life at all. She directly inserted one of her hands into the crack of the door. Even though she was grimacing in pain, she didn't want to pull her hand back. She looked in my direction hatefully and shouted, "Kill you, kill you." I realized that she had mistaken me for Lin Ran. After all, we looked somewhat similar. Just when she was about to break through the door, the security department, which had been on high alert after being urged by the old teacher every day, arrived in time and subdued her. No student was injured on the spot. I finally heaved a sigh of relief. The sunlight in the sky shone down. I enjoyed the joy of surviving a disaster and smiled at the monitor. I survived. The next time I saw the old teacher was on the day he was about to retire. He came to say goodbye to me. I finally told him the whole story. He didn't seem surprised. He just said, "Maybe you saw Lin Ran because you were about to die. But when you realized that he didn't exist, he knew that with your personality, you would definitely investigate to find out. In this way you could avoid death." I suddenly understood the reason why I couldn't see Lin Ran when I realized that he didn't exist. But I pursed my lips, and the corners of my eyes turned red. I kind of miss him. The old teacher helplessly touched my head. "Maybe he misses you too." I handed over the paper crane. This was left by Lin Ran. I originally thought he wanted to give it to me, but maybe he wanted to give it to the child he saved. "Is that child doing well now?" I asked, but saw the old teacher looking at me earnestly. "Don't you really remember?" "Who you?" She said that the child Lin Ran saved back then should be as old as you are now. The sound of the wind whistled in my ears. I was suddenly stunned in place. In my memory, the pictures of my childhood were always blurred. Maybe because of the brain's self-protection mechanism, I automatically erased that terrifying, painful, and desperate memory. But Lin Ran never forgot. In the 10-year interval, in the time-space interlaced with mine, he saved me again. I looked at the words on the note. "Don't care about others' opinions. You are you, the best you in my heart." So these words were left for me. The old teacher patted me on the shoulder and gave me that yellow Chinese book. I thought about it and decided to give it to you. Then his old figure disappeared in the sunset. I lowered my head and opened that page. I should be a towering tree. I don't need a backer and I can't cry. I can shield all hardships. My vision gradually blurred and big teardrops rolled down. I quickly wiped them away. I know Lin Ran. I will try to be a person like you, a real hero. A towering tree that can shield all hardships. In the hazy picture, I walked towards the classroom while crying. The moment I stood at the door, the sunlight shone in from the window and landed on my desk. The cherry blossoms outside the window were in full bloom. In the seat next to me, the long black hair was blown by the wind. The gentle girl slowly turned her head and smiled at me.